The Sony ZV-E10 is a great camera for vloggers and content creators, but is it actually good for photography? Let's find out in this video. Let's start off with the basic specs of the camera you will need for your photography. In this camera you'll find a 25 megapixel crop sensor, which you can find on many other Sony beginner cameras. We've got a face and eye detection, a flip out screen which is not touchscreen but touch sensitive, a Wi-Fi function so you can transfer your photos directly to your phone. We've got continuous photo shooting at 11 frames per second and raw photos capability so you can edit the photos better in Lightroom or any other software. And the starting price of this camera is around 780 euros with the kit lens from 16 to 50 millimeters. So altogether the specs make a really good photo camera, and now I tried this camera out in the outdoors and gonna share with you my results, what I liked and didn't like about the pictures and the usability of the whole ZV-E10 system. So the first thing I noticed when using the camera is the size and portability. It's really lightweight and I had no troubles bringing it everywhere with me. Plus it didn't feel like a burden to carry this camera the whole afternoon, which is a great plus when using a camera. And the second thing about the size is you can change lenses because it's an interchangeable system, and all the photos here were taken with the kit lens. But you've also got the option with the Sony E-mount to use more professional lenses on this camera. So if you really like photography and develop your hobby or passion for this, you can start investing more money and invest into more expensive and better lenses, which you can still use with this system, which is also a very good thing about this camera I really like. The next thing on the ZV-E10 I want to talk about is the flip out screen. It's really cool. You can rotate the screen to different angles. So for example, if you're shooting very low, you can still see what you're photographing, or for example in the selfie mode so you can see yourself. And this is really cool to have this feature on the camera. The one thing I didn't like on the screen is that it's not touch, so you can't really use it to set different settings, but it has touch focus. That means you can use to set different focuses. So for example, if there would be a person behind me, I could like click here and then change the focus to the person behind me on the screen. So it's kind of has touch but doesn't have touch as well. So this is a little bit weird and the thing I really disliked about the screen. If you enjoyed this video so far, leave a like and comment down below. And now let's continue with the picture quality on the ZV-E10. To try out the picture quality of this camera, I tried to use it in different scenarios. So the first scenario was during bright daylight, and here I wanted to see how the general performance of the camera is and how the pictures turn out. And first I noticed how sharp the pictures actually are. So here I have a picture of a leaf and you can really see the details here, and it's very sharp. And I was very impressed because we're using it's a beginner camera and we have a kit lens which is not very expensive, and the quality was still very good. And that's why I was very impressed with the pictures. And the second thing I wanted to try out is how well the raw pictures perform and how much information do they have. So I took this one picture here, and as you see the sky is blown out. It's just white and you don't see the sky. And then in Lightroom I went in and used the highlight tool to recover some information. And I was also very impressed how much information the picture had, even though the highlights were blown out. So this was very impressive during daylight, and I really enjoyed the pictures. And then the second scenario was at sunset and the blue hour, to see how the noise performance is and how the camera performs in low light. And here the pictures obviously had a little bit of noise, but I was still very impressed by the quality. Here's some more example pictures I took during the day, so you can see if you like the quality of the pictures and in general how well the camera performs. Another aspect of the camera I also want to talk about is the battery life. During the whole day shooting I didn't have any problems with the battery. It was very satisfying to use it, so I couldn't say something negative about this. It's not the longest battery life you have on a camera, but it's very fine for your everyday use, and also very cool. If you're going out for several hours, you will one battery will be enough. but you can obviously buy a second battery or actually charge it with a power bank if you're on the go, which is also very cool on this camera. Now let's talk about the biggest drawback of this camera. I have to be honest, for me this is not a drawback because I don't use this feature on this camera, and that's why I'm not very disappointed about this, but I know a lot of other photographers who need this feature, so I just wanna include this in this video to give a better opinion on this camera. And it's the missing viewfinder on the camera. You just have the screen and no viewfinder, and if you're photographing and you're used to using a viewfinder, this may be a disappointing factor. But personally, I started with different Canon cameras and they all had a viewfinder, but I rarely used it because I really like to use the screen as my viewfinder. I find it much more useful because I can go to different angles, and the screen is, that's why, much more nicer, I would say. Plus I also do a lot of video stuff, so I use the screen anyway, and that's why the viewfinder, the missing viewfinder, is not a drawback for me. But I can understand if you're a photographer and you're used to using this viewfinder, this may be a problem for you. But I can assure you that just using the screen is also very cool and you will not miss it. Especially if you're using this camera as a hybrid camera for video and photo, this may not be a problem for you. Now let's conclude this video and see if the Sony ZV-E10 is a good camera for photographers. And at the beginning, I have to say I was a little bit skeptical because I come from a different system and I had really to get used to this whole menu and the whole camera. But after 30 minutes of using it, I was very impressed of how light this camera is, how easy it handles all the situations, and at the end also how well the photos turned out. So I really like this camera, and this is actually my girlfriend's camera, so I had the privilege to try it out, and I'm very impressed and I'm happy she bought this camera. So I'm happy for our next vacation because I'm gonna use it a little bit more, and that's why I would really recommend this camera if you're a beginner and you're a photographer, or you want to try out photography and also want to do videography and stuff at the same time. This camera is a really great hybrid camera for those purposes, and that's why I can recommend this camera as a photographer to you. If you're interested in a camera that's more meant for photos and has a little bit of a nostalgic look to it, check out my video on the Fuji X100F, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.